Hello, my advertising students. We are up to chapter 2, and this is more of an explanation of what advertising is. Some of you feel like you understand what it is, you see it all the time, it bombards us, but this is getting into the nitty-gritty, more concepts to understand. So let's move on with the chapter, the practice of advertising. So just so you know, advertising is a paid form of persuasive communication that uses the mass and interactive media to reach broad audiences in order to connect an identified sponsor with buyers. So the buyers are the target audience, and they provide information about the products, and the products could be goods, services, or ideas, just like we talked about in chapter 1, and interpret the product features in terms of customers' needs and wants. So the big difference between advertising and public relations, which we'll cover in chapter 3, is advertising is paid for, okay? Public relations is not. So it might sound good, like, oh, PR is not paid for, you don't have to pay for that, but you also don't have any control over it either. So advertising, we pay for it and we control where we want it to go. The basic functions, why you advertise in the first place. It identifies the product or the store where it's sold. It gives you information about the product through the commercial. And it persuades you with recognizable brand names in widespread marketing. So what are the key components? 2. One is a strategy, the logic behind an advertisement stated in objectives that focus on areas such as sales, emotional appeal, or brand reputation. And the message is the concept behind the message. It's how it's expressed based on consumers' insights, using creativity, maybe using humor, maybe using what we call slice of life, using a celebrity, using an influencer. How does the message reach you? Okay, so just as a reminder, you will be picking your favorite ad no matter when it was created. It can be an old one or a new one, and you will follow the rubric, and I think you will enjoy this, figuring out the target audience, the IMC plan, why it's your favorite, what is the message, and many of my students like doing this project. Typically, we present them in class so everyone can enjoy them, but for an online class, I get to see them. Okay, some more key components. Media targets prospective buyers by matching their profiles to media audiences. Okay, so you think about Instagram, TikTok, television, radio, depending on the target that you're trying to market to, is how you decide what media to choose. Then you need to evaluate the message and the media and the strategy. Okay, does it work? Did you reach your target audience? So the effectiveness is important between strategy, media, message, and evaluation. All 4 things go together. Whether or not the ad was effective means, did sales go up? Are more people aware of the product or service? Were there more mentions? Were there likes? Were there shares? So what are the common types of advertising? We have brand advertising, and that's focused on long-term brand identity and image, and I'm going to show you some examples in a minute. Retail or local advertising, we know those. They could be for a Publix or a Room to Go selling merchandise geographically. And then direct response advertising tries to stimulate an immediate customer response. So let's see some examples of what that looks like. Other business-to-business advertising, and then institutional advertising. So business-to-business is sent from one business to another. Maybe you've worked at a company and you've seen ads from companies that want you to use their products or services. Institutional establishes more of a corporate identity to win the public over for the entire organization. So example here is Procter & Gamble's Mother's Day ad fostering goodwill with the customer. So what are the common types of advertising? Nonprofit, So that could be for like a St. Jude hospital, reaching members and volunteers and donors. And they have public service advertising, and that's for a good cause like Don't Text and Drive. So let's go back a little bit. I told you I'd give you some examples. Here's brand advertising. This ad promotes Crest White Strips. It gives you information about the product and why you should buy it. Okay, here's an example of the retail advertising. This is for the Loft. It's a national retailer, but this is promoting their products. Institutional example here is for the pharmaceutical trade, not something specific, not a specific pharmaceutical company. Okay, direct response. We all remember the ShamWow guy. I think he is in jail. Business to business. We know the Aflac duck. Quirky, but it's really business to business because it's for the companies to have this insurance for their employees. Nonprofit here, we've got American Red Cross. They're doing a lot of advertising right now during COVID-19. And of course, good old Smokey the Bear, don't leave your fires going in the woods, okay? Only you can prevent wildfires. It's an oldie but a goodie. So what role does advertising perform? Okay. Marketing communication role, it transforms a product into a distinctive brand by creating a brand image. Okay, we all know that a brand has a certain image about it. Prestigious maybe a value brand. Economic and societal roles, advertising works to create a demand for brands and lower prices for consumers in the end. Advertising shapes our self-image, our sense of style, through things that we wear and use. So maybe you're someone who likes to carry a Gucci bag, or you like to wear Tory Burch sandals or Vineyard Vines shorts. So all of that gives off an image, a sense of style that these companies have worked hard to create. So advertising generates cost efficiencies by increasing the demand for large groups of people, resulting in higher levels of sales, and ultimately the price comes down. So typically this is in technology. So think about flat screen TVs, things like that that are more high tech. The more advertising, the more people buy them. It becomes more normal. They're adopted easily, and then the price comes down. So the evolution of key concepts of advertising. So I always say, in order to understand what's going on in advertising currently, you need to look back on history. We have come so far, and I don't expect any of you to even barely grasp it, because you know what you know and what you grew up with. But we're going to go through a timeline of advertising here, and because of the changes in technology and the type of media available and the economics and social environments, it's where we are today. So we're going to go back, way back into the 15th to the 18th century. It was just more about, the age of print. So mechanization encouraged businesses to advertise beyond their locations. They had the ability to let people know to come to their stores or know about their products. In the early ad agencies in the 1840s to the 1890s, advertisers became concerned with creating ads that worked, and professionalism took shape. And just a fun fact, the very first ad agency was in Philadelphia. It was called J. Walter Thompson, and that is where I'm from, so I like to add these little fun facts along the way. So when we get into the 1900s up into the 50s, I say think Mad Men. If you haven't seen that series, I know we're all kind of cooped up now and can't go places. Netflix it. Go on Netflix and just binge watch it. Between the costumes and the ridiculousness of the smoking and drinking on the job, I think you'll enjoy it, not to mention the affairs that go on in the offices as well. But modern advertising adopted in this era more scientific research techniques. It was more of an art form blended with science. Things like focus groups and tastings and samplings to understand the behavior behind the consumer. The creative era came in the 60s to the 70s, and that's where the power of the agencies exploded with the resurgence of art, inspiration, and intuition. I want you to take a look at some advertising. This video here, again, I tell you I incorporate some video, some really creative advertising, billboards, outdoor, that you can see, just really, really interesting. And it's kind of long, but if you watch a couple minutes of it, it'll give you a sense of what we're talking about here. So we're still on the line here of advertising. The era of accountability and integration, the 1970s to present day. Remember I talked about accountability. Clients want ads that produce sales, and the public expects social responsibility for companies. That's where Tom's comes in, and other companies that are not leaving their carbon footprint. They're giving back. They're sustainable. Managers started to adopting the integrated marketing communications to better coordinate their brand communication. They were all working together. The social media era, and this is the era that you've entered now, you can see how much has gone on in the past, is the big game changer. In this new interactive world, consumers generate brand messages, shared experiences. It's called consumer generated content. And you love it, and companies try to bring that to you through influencers. And this is a nice timeline. I don't know how well you can see this, but it kind of goes through the timeline. You can take a look and see, kind of reiterating what we're talking about here on these past slides. Okay, the advertising world. Oh, what do you know? Here are my Mad Men squad. Again, I really, really love this series. It was so good. And if you're into advertising, it kind of will make you, or even if you're not, it will make you fall in love with the whole industry and the creativity of it. So who are the key players in the process of advertising? I'm going to use Wawa because they are located in Wawa, Pennsylvania, where I did not live too far from there. But as we said before, regional brand. They are a company that we're going to go through to discuss the organization and what the process looks like when you're hiring an ad agency. So the message sponsor or the advertiser, and the example here is Wawa, they usually have their own marketing department, which they do, that initiates the advertising efforts. So this in-house marketing team at Wawa does not have the skill set to create an ad or a campaign or an integrated marketing communication plan. So what they do is they look for ad agencies and they try them out, basically looking to one of these companies is looking for a win here. Okay, so they hire the ad agency. In this case, it might be the Archer Group. But they also could have many different ad agencies that work on different brands within the company. So if you're not a fan, you might be, of their hoagies. My kids are crazy about them down here and from Pennsylvania. But they also have a big coffee program. So their hoagie program may have one ad agency to promote that, the sandwiches and their food service, versus their coffee might have a completely different ad agency. So it doesn't always match up. You don't always have the same agency. So there's two advertising organizational structures, okay? When a company has an advertising department, okay, that means they're a full service agency. Okay, they can do everything for you. They have media specialists there. They have freelance writers and creative boutiques, and all that falls under this area. When an advertiser has when they don't have an in-house agency, that's who I'm talking about on the left. That means they've got to shop everything out. If they do have an in-house agency, it means they can do everything in-house. They don't have to go out that often. Sometimes they do, if they want something very specific. But most of the time, they can do everything in-house. They can create the ads, they can do the research, they can buy the media, all of that. So here's more key players connected to ad agencies. So if you're ever thinking about working for an ad agency, or you ever have, there is a lot to do, and this is what they do. They create, they produce, and they distribute the message. They employ experts who are passionate about their work, and they negotiate the best media deals for their clients. That's what an ad agency does. And here's just the Hoagie Fest Sun Fun and Classic Hoagies. You may see this on the highways, especially during the summertime. So who are the key players? So the media, what do they do? So channels of communication that deliver messages and engage audiences. Many are large media conglomerates such as Time Warner and Viacom, and the mass media enables advertisers to reach many people with a single message in a cost-efficient manner. But these days, we have so many different ways to reach specific audiences, whether it's someone who likes sports and fishing versus someone who may like fashion, just women, just men, children, older adults. So there's a lot of different media out there, and those people are called media buyers, and we're going to learn a little bit about them as we go through these slides. So who are the key players that work for an ad agency? They are professional suppliers and consultants. So they provide things like photographers, producers, printers, supplier of user-generated content online. So not everybody specializes in something. Who are the key players? An outside supplier may be useful because they specialize in a particular area, or if the company's overloaded with work, or they want a fresh perspective because, when you work for the company, you can't think outside the box sometimes. So in the new world of digital media and consumer-generated content, many companies are what specialize in that, and they get hired out by ad agencies if that's not their specialization. So here's an example. Wayfair, we know them as the online furniture company. What they do is they showcase their customers and their shopping sprees and different posts about how they set up their house. And they use that to help promote their products online. And there's a lot of other companies that do that too, that you probably buy from. It's a team effort. There's models, there's voiceover people, there's photographers, there's printers, there's the digital people. All these people come together to create ads, radio, TV, print. As we mentioned before, there's full service agencies and there's in-house agencies. Full service encompasses account management, creative services, media planning, and account planning, whereas an in-house agency is part of the advertiser's organization. It helps to manage costs and control the brand image. There's all kinds of agencies out there. There's specialized agencies that perform certain functions for certain customers or industries or markets, such as the food industry or millennials, African Americans, women. There's creative boutiques out there. Small agencies that work only on creative execution of one idea or product. For example, when I graduated from college, I worked for an ad agency called Resort Marketers, and the only clients we had were resorts. And you only needed a few. So we were considered a creative boutique, and one of our clients was the Greenbrier in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. I've never been to it, but it was this very palatial hotel that had a cooking school and spas and golf course, and many presidents had stayed there. So that's an example of being very specific. We were very focused. We had connections and relationships with all the high-end magazines, because back then that's pretty much where we advertised. It was like Travel and Leisure magazine, Food and Wine, those kinds of relationships. So the example I gave for a specialized agency, here's an example. It's called Girl Power. And what they do is they're dedicated to women's empowerment. And so you might hire them if you're specifically going after women, depending on your product. And they elevate profiles of all inspiring women. And that's just an example of a very specialized company. And here is their logo. 3 main sources. This is how an ad agency gets paid. They either get commission based on media, billings. They pay an hourly fee. They get paid an hourly fee. Or they get a retainer, which they get paid on a monthly basis based on their project work. So if something comes up, they have someone on retainer. They don't have to go out and find someone. I have a picture here and the logo of Zimmerman Advertising. They are in Fort Lauderdale, and great agency. They offer a great summer internship, maybe not this summer, but it's a very competitive internship. And if we were a face-to-face class, we typically have a tour of the agency, or we have someone come in from the agency to talk to us about hiring students and what different types of jobs are available in an ad agency. So the key players and jobs within the agency. There's 5 main areas, and we're going to look at those. There's an account manager, account planning and research, creative development and research, media research, planning and buying, and then internal operations that kind of keep the whole agency going, like HR, traffic, things like that. So an account manager, this team acts as a liaison between the client, which would be Wawa, just say, and the agency. The account executive interprets the client's marketing research strategy for the agency. So they're the go-to person, that account executive, with their client. And they come back and tell their team, hey, let's put together a Hoagie Fest campaign, or a campaign for coffee, or whatever it is that the client wants. There's account planning and research, and this team gathers market intelligence and act as the voice of the consumer. Find out what what's going on in the marketplace, what's going on with competition. They're strategic specialists, and they research what the consumer wants and needs are, and as I said before, who's their competition, what's trending, what's out there that they should start thinking about. Creative development and production means anyone that's a copywriter, that's someone who writes the ad. Art directors, producers, meaning for commercials or videos. Media research, planning, and buying, that's back to that media piece I was telling you. Finding out, where does my audience view their media? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Is it television? And if it is television, what channels? Okay, if it's print, what magazines? Internal operations, as I said before, it's more like finance, human resources, payroll. Okay, so changes in the practices of advertising. Okay, I think I've mentioned this. I know I have, but the consumer is taking control. Okay. It's not just about the agency anymore. It's so important to find out what the consumer wants and let them help you with your marketing and media to connect with the customer, to do that storytelling, to be authentic. Weakened media and blurred lines. Okay, so we know that television is still a major player, but there's so many different cable channels out there that kind of split up the target audience into different areas. Digital media has fragmented the media world with new ever-changing forms. You have agencies that take a stronger leadership role in the development of brand strategies. So there's so many things that have gone on now, blurring lines together. Interactive communication and real-time advertising. So brands do still send messages, but so do consumers. Brand stewards must now listen and respond to the senders. Many of you have interacted with brands through Twitter or other means, through maybe Instagram, and they need to listen to us, they need to get back to us, they need to fix the situation. Companies have new positions now that to accommodate social media. That is where most of you are getting your internships and your jobs, okay? Listening to the customer, reaching out to them, making sure that they know that they're heard. Effectiveness, we talked about this earlier. Agencies must create advertising that delivers results and then prove its effectiveness once completed. So effective ads deliver the intended message, as we know, and consumers respond as the advertiser hoped they would. That's an effective ad. Sales have gone up. There's more awareness. There's more talk about it. It's viral marketing. So as we wrap up this chapter, this is a great example of using user-generated information. So I don't know if you've ever seen this ad. It's pretty funny, and I don't know why the link's not working. So take a look at the real ad. But what went on was Peyton Manning for Gatorade. He is, we know, a celebrity. He's funny. He does connect with a certain audience, not just athletes. And what they did was they featured real consumers that participated, and they were the center of the story. And it's called Manning Says You Don't Get It If You Don't Sweat It. And basically, you have people at like a convenience store buying Gatorade, and if they didn't look like they were sweating, then Peyton Manning came out of the back and basically said, you know, do sit-ups or do push-ups or whatever. And so take a look at it. It's funny. But the whole idea here is that this campaign broke Gatorade viewership records. That's how you know it was effective. It became the most watched Gatorade online series, garnering more than 23 million views. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about if something was effective. But take a look at it on YouTube. You'll like it. So this is the end of chapter 2. I'll see you for chapter 3. And please email me if you have any questions about the syllabus or the group project. And just know that your group, take a look at the rubric for your group project, because one of the things you need to do, aside from creating a survey sooner or later, you also need to sign up for a conference call with me. Each group has one conference call with me so that I can answer any questions you have for the semester.